So, continuing this series, we're now looking at the New York Rangers who missed the playoffs, which leaves a few teams left out of the playoffs. And then when I get done with those, then we get into the teams that were knocked out in the first round and what happened there. Um, and I'm sure for fans of teams that got knocked out in the first round, they're like, yippee. That's part of the reason why I time this the way I do, so that when I start talking about teams that are out in the first round, hopefully some of that anger and the bad taste is out of your mouth kind of thing at that point. I know not for all. But for the Rangers and their fan base, things are pretty good right now. They improved by 1 point this year. They went up to 78 from 77. That's not why things are pretty good right now if you're a Rangers fan. A win at the draft lottery is a game changer now, and I like it. And I have no problem with, while there's a lot of the old guard saying that it's not right, and the worst teams should have the best pick, or at least one of the best three. My answer is no. I like this system because it really discourages tanking. The New York Rangers didn't tank. They really didn't. But at the same time, they knew they were in a rebuild, so they stayed the course, and they were rewarded for it. So, it's not a thing that I think is a big deal. They were 22nd in goals for and 24 for goals against. So this is definitely a team that needed that infusion of young talent. They do have some young talent in the pipeline. I have some questions about the ceiling for that talent, but we'll see, right? Now, for contracts that seem to be a little pricey based on the production, Nemesnikov stands out with his $4 million, but it expires next summer. So, with only 1 year left in that contract, if they want to dump it, they can probably find somebody to take it. I don't know if they'll bother. Shattenkirk, $6.65 million for another couple of years. Mark Stahl at $5.7 million, and Brendan Smith, who's also played forward. He was playing forward a lot towards the end of the year. $4.35 million. That's some expensive blue liners for a team that didn't have very good defense. And of course, for Rangers fans right now, they're saying, yeah, we know. And it doesn't help that the guys they trade to Tampa tend to become pretty darn good for Tampa. Of course, what helps is Tampa being out in the first round. We'll get to them with the next part of this series. So those are as close as I can come to bad contracts. And they're not that bad, because this team is going through a rebuild. And they are expiring soon enough, 1 year, 2 year, 2 year, 2 years, that it won't really affect when the contracts come up for the kids that are in the system right now. Lundqvist, $8.5 million for another 2 years. I didn't put that in red because to me it's a high value for what he brings right now, but it doesn't really hurt the team to have him there at $8.5 million. Georgiev, I believe he's making $793K. So, and that's for next year as well. So it really isn't hurting them at all. Now the question becomes, what does Lundqvist do this summer? Because it seemed like towards the end of the season, Lundqvist and Luongo and Ryan Miller were the three goaltenders that were probably on retirement watch. But we'll see, right? Lundqvist seems to be committed to being with the Rangers through thick and thin. Definitely the thin right now. And, so we'll see what happens. There are no upcoming UFAs this summer of note for the New York Rangers. None. If they were to be rented, they rented them. Restricted free agents, Buchnevich, who's got arbitration rights. Lemieux, part of the reason the Winnipeg Jets jettison Lemieux, we've got enough contract problems. We'll throw him into the deal. But I don't know that Lemieux gets a big raise this year. And I still think the Jets are going to regret losing Lemieux at some point. You got to love the kid's fight. Pretty much literally. He's always yelling at the other bench during any given game. Always. He sits on the end and he yells at the other bench all the time. Pionk is arbitration rights restricted free agent this summer. Of course, arbitration rights meaning that if he and the team can't come to an agreement on their contract, he has a right to file for arbitration, and an arbiter would take a look and go, you're right or you're right. D'Angelo is also on the list, but he'll get a raise. I don't know how much. I do wonder how much. He had a great year. He had the best year he's ever had in the NHL. I'm not sure how much of a raise he gets, though. Clayson has arbitration rights, and Lettieri has arbitration rights as well. Both restricted free agents, but no big raises there. So there's no big, scary contracts to come out of this summer. Pionk and D'Angelo certainly get their raises, but again, how much do they get? And what happens from here with the New York Rangers blue line? Because there are a lot of rumors that this summer they're going to be active in the unrestricted free agent market, and that Erik Karlsson's somebody they want to target. So if Erik Karlsson's going to get brought in, Erik Karlsson's going to cost a lot of money. You got to think a minimum of $10 million, which means one of the defensemen could end up being moved out to make room for him. Prospects. This team is awash in prospects. I know that Rangers fans are excited about Kravtsov. Elias Anderson, who had a lot of different looks with the Rangers this year. He was called up, 3 times? 2 or 3 times at least. And I'm still not sure what Anderson's upside. I don't know how far up he's going to be on their scoring list, say next year and the year after. Philip Hedl, same thing. Hedl is a very good young forward, but again, what's the ceiling? The good news is, you'll notice he's not technically part yet, so I couldn't really put him in here, but odds are drafting at number 2, they get Kaapo Kakko, and he projects to be an NHLer next year, and that'll bring their goals for up from 22nd. Not only that, but if they add Kakko up front and they add Karlsson on the blue line, that's going to improve their offense a lot. And it may very well end up improving their defense as well. Their defense, Keandre Miller, who may need another year before he comes in, I would think. Again, with defensemen that are drafted outside the top 10, I am a little more cautious to project them going right into the lineup. And Ryan Lindgren, who they acquired in the Rick Nash deal last year. Lindgren, a good stay-at-home defenseman. We'll see if he gets a chance to go in there next year. Again, if they end up deciding to move one of their expensive defensemen, especially with the acquisition of Karlsson, if they decide to remake this blue line, Lindgren could be a part of that, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. And of course, Rangers fans excited about Igor Shesterkin, who's going to be coming over and joining the team soonish, I would think. And that could make things difficult for Georgiev. Thankfully for Georgiev, he's already proven he can play at the NHL level. So if Shesterkin ends up beating him out for a job, I would think there won't be any shortage of teams that would take a flyer on Georgiev. He's a good goaltender. Now, with all of that said, where they missed the playoffs, it's right off the bat. October 4th is opening night. From October 4th till 13th, they lost 4 out of 5. They would end up losing 8 out of 11. They're dead right out of the gate. November 29th to December 27th, they lost 9 out of 11. Now, there were some winning streaks in the middle that definitely inflated the idea that maybe these guys could make the playoffs, but ultimately it just didn't work out for them. January 2nd to 10th, they lost 5 in a row. They ended up losing 6 out of 7 in that streak. And February 24th, so that's right around the trade deadline, till March 7th, they lost 6 in a row. They lost 11 out of 12. I do wonder if this summer, if they'll end up maybe making a play to bring Zuccarello back as well. Zuccarello was extremely popular in New York, and I think he would be open to returning. Now, Dallas really wants to keep Zuccarello as well. They're in the second round. Dallas is doing pretty well as I record this. So I think Zuccarello and Dallas will sit down and talk. But the team has, and this being the Rangers, $62 million spent for next year. And if the cap's going to be $83 million, and again, if they did manage to get rid of one of these contracts, if they do, whether it's a buyout to get cap relief, or whether it's a trade to a team like a Florida, Carolina, Arizona, who have the cap space, they could be very active this summer. The New York Rangers, it could be quite a year coming up for them. And we could see them right back in the thick of it. I think the really interesting part is there are only a few teams I can think of that we can look at and say, well, they're not going to be back in the playoffs next year. For the most part, a lot of these teams with the right moves and with salary cap being where it is, and a pretty decent free agent market, let's be honest. Right now it looks decent. We know there's going to be a lot of these guys that get signed last minute by the teams they're currently with. But if it ends up being the kind of free agent market it looks like it is, this could be a very, very fun summer. And it could be a great year for the New York Rangers coming up. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just tapping upon this video. And I have a funny feeling the New York Ranger fans right now, not upset at all that they missed the playoffs, because the future is coming. And as solid as these kids look, this one might just be the one that puts them right back into the playoffs and eventually leads them to being in the contender conversation as well. But again, let me know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you again soon.